The Chosen Season 6 is almost here, and this time, there's no easing into it. Episode 1 throws you straight into the night, everything falls apart. Prime Video and 5 and 2 Studios have confirmed that Season 6 of The Chosen is not like anything the series has done before. This isn't a season spread across months of ministry, miracles, and slow character growth. This is one single day. The final day of Jesus' life on Earth, stretched across 6 episodes and then closed out with a feature-length finale in theaters. Dallas Jenkins, the creator behind the show, has already warned fans that this is the biggest and heaviest season the show has ever attempted, and after digging into everything confirmed so far, it's easy to see why he's saying that. So let's break down exactly what's coming, episode by episode, moment by moment, starting with the arrest that kicks the entire nightmare into motion. The season opens in the Garden of Gethsemane, and if you've followed the show this long, you already know what that garden represents. It's the last quiet moment Jesus has before the world turns on him. According to the official synopsis released by Prime Video, Season 6 picks up exactly where that vulnerability ends and the machinery of betrayal begins. Judas leads the arresting party straight to him, and from that point forward, there is no slow build anymore. Every scene from here moves the story one step closer to the cross. What makes this section so difficult to watch isn't just the physical arrest itself, it's the emotional whiplash of watching someone who spent 5 seasons building trust and friendship with these disciples get taken away by the very system that should have recognized him. From the garden, Jesus is taken to face a series of interrogations, and this is where the show is expected to lean hard into something the source material has always emphasized but rarely gets shown in this much detail on screen: the sheer unfairness of the process. He's brought before religious authorities who have already made up their minds before a single word is spoken. The questioning isn't really about finding truth. It's about building a case that was decided before it even started. Historical accounts describe this period as a blur of hurried, informal hearings, moved through quickly and quietly, largely because the people pushing for a conviction needed it finished before public opinion could shift. That detail alone tells you everything about the tone Season 6 is going for. This isn't a fair trial dressed up as one. It's injustice wearing the costume of procedure, and watching it unfold is going to be uncomfortable in a way earlier seasons never asked us to sit with. Alongside that interrogation, the show is also expected to give real weight to what's happening outside those walls, specifically with Peter. If you know the story, you know where this is heading, and if you've watched this cast build Peter's character for 5 seasons, you know exactly how much that moment is going to hurt. This is a man who has spent years insisting he would never turn his back, who has been loud, loyal, and sometimes reckless in his devotion. And now, standing in a courtyard while the person he swore to protect is being questioned inside, fear takes over. 3 times he'll be asked if he knows Jesus. 3 times he'll deny it. The show has built years of emotional investment in this relationship specifically so that this moment lands as hard as possible, and based on everything Jenkins has said about the season being the heaviest yet, there's no reason to think they're going to soften it. From there, the story moves toward the figure who ultimately holds the political power to decide Jesus' fate, and this is where Season 6 starts widening its lens. It's not just a religious conflict anymore, it becomes a political one. The Roman government gets pulled directly into a decision it clearly doesn't want to make, and that hesitation, that reluctance, is part of what makes this stretch of the story so tense. There's a moment where the person in power has the ability to end this whole situation with a single word, and instead, he passes the responsibility elsewhere, sending Jesus back and forth between different authorities, each one hoping someone else will make the final call. Historically, this back and forth reflects the real political tension of first-century Jerusalem, a city under Roman occupation where local religious leaders and Roman officials had to constantly negotiate power, and Season 6 appears determined to show just how messy and how human that negotiation actually was. By the time this stretch of episodes wraps up, you're left with a Jesus who has been questioned, mocked, and passed around like a problem nobody wants to own, and a crowd outside who is being given a choice that will decide everything. That's where the real weight of this season starts to build, and it's only going to get heavier from here. After being shuffled between religious leaders and political authorities, Jesus ends up back in front of the one man who actually has the power to release him. And this is where the show is expected to dig into one of the most uncomfortable details of the entire Passion story, the choice given to the crowd. Historically, it was a custom during Passover for the ruling authority to release one prisoner as a gesture toward the people. The crowd is given two names, a man already convicted of violent crimes and Jesus. And they choose the criminal. It's a moment that's been depicted plenty of times before, but based on how this cast and crew have handled emotional beats in past seasons, expect the scene to hit differently. This isn't a distant historical event on a screen. It's the culmination of 5 seasons spent making these characters, this city, and this crowd feel real. When they turn on him, it's going to feel personal. From there, the political figure in charge makes a decision that history has never let him escape. He publicly declines responsibility for what's about to happen, but authorizes it anyway. Jesus is beaten, mocked, dressed in a way meant to humiliate him, and prepared for execution. This part of the story tends to be the hardest for audiences, not because of any single dramatic moment, but because of how methodical and cold the cruelty is. It's not chaotic violence. It's procedure. Soldiers following orders, a crowd watching, a system grinding forward exactly the way it was built to. Season 6 has been described by its creator as the most intense material the show has ever filmed, and this is almost certainly the section he's talking about. Then comes the walk. Jesus, already exhausted and injured, is forced to carry the very instrument of his execution through the streets. Historical and biblical accounts describe him struggling under the weight, to the point where a bystander, a man named Simon from Cyrene, is pulled from the crowd and ordered to carry it for him. It's a small detail in the larger story, but it says something important, that even in the middle of this injustice, there were still ordinary people getting swept into it, forced to participate in a moment far bigger than themselves. Expect the show to spend real time here, because The Chosen has always been at its best when it finds humanity in the margins of a story everyone already knows. When they finally reach the site of the crucifixion, the show moves into territory it has never gone before. Jesus is offered a drink meant to dull the pain, and according to the accounts the story is based on, he refuses it. It's a small but deliberate choice, a signal that he intends to face what's coming fully aware, without numbing himself to it. Then the crucifixion itself. 2 other men are executed alongside him, both convicted criminals, and the story draws a sharp contrast between them. One hurls insults. The other, in his final moments, asks to be remembered. It's one of the most quietly powerful exchanges in the entire narrative, a moment of grace happening in the middle of unimaginable suffering, and it's easy to see why the show's writers would want to give it real space to breathe. Standing near the cross, the show is expected to show the people who loved him the most, forced to watch helplessly. His mother, close friends, people who followed him for years, now reduced to simply being present because there's nothing else left to do. This is where the show's slow-burn character work over 5 seasons is going to pay off in the hardest way possible. These aren't side characters anymore. They're people the audience has grown attached to, watching the worst moment of their lives happen in real time. According to the accounts the season is built on, the sky darkens in the middle of the day, and it stays that way for hours. Then come Jesus' final words, a mix of anguish, forgiveness, and finally, surrender. The moment he dies, the story describes the ground shaking and a massive curtain inside the temple tearing apart on its own, a detail loaded with symbolic weight that religious scholars have debated for centuries. Even the soldiers standing guard are struck by what they've just witnessed, some of them reportedly acknowledging, for the first time, that they may have just executed someone far more significant than a criminal. By the end of this stretch, Season 6 will have covered the single most consequential day in the entire show's timeline, and it does it without a single miracle to soften the blow. No last-minute rescue. No dramatic reversal. Just the full, brutal weight of what actually happened, told through characters this audience has spent years learning to love. And that's exactly what makes the final part of the story, what comes after, and what's still ahead for this show, worth talking about next. By the time the credits roll on Episode 6, Season 6 will have done something no previous season of The Chosen has attempted. It will have taken one single day and stretched it into a full, sweeping television event, and even then, the story isn't finished on the small screen. The most intense part of it, the actual crucifixion, is being saved for something bigger. According to official announcements from Prime Video and 5 and 2 Studios, the season's climactic episode won't premiere on streaming at all. Instead, it's being released as a standalone, feature-length theatrical event in spring 2027, playing in theaters worldwide. This mirrors the approach the show has taken with earlier theatrical releases, but the scale here is different. Dallas Jenkins has publicly called this the biggest production the show has ever attempted, and giving The Crucifixion its own dedicated theatrical release tells you exactly how much weight the creators are putting on getting this moment right. It's not being treated as just another episode. It's being treated as the emotional and spiritual centerpiece of the entire series so far. As for when you can actually start watching, the rollout has already been locked in. Season 6 premieres on Prime Video on November 15, 2026, with the first 3 episodes dropping all at once. From there, new episodes release weekly with episodes 4, 5, and 6 rolling out through December 6th. That structure alone is a shift from how the show has released content in the past, giving audiences an immediate 3-episode block to sink into before settling into a weekly rhythm for the back half of the season. It's a pacing choice that makes sense once you understand the story being told. The first 3 episodes cover the arrest and the trials, the tangled, unfair process that leads Jesus toward execution. The final 3 carry the emotional weight of the walk to the cross and everything that follows. Splitting the release this way gives audiences a moment to breathe between the 2 halves of an incredibly heavy story, something that feels almost necessary given what this season is asking viewers to sit through. And this isn't the end of the road for the series either. Production has already been confirmed for Season 7, which will pick up in the aftermath of everything Season 6 puts audiences through. Where Season 6 is defined by grief, injustice, and loss, Season 7 is set to shift the story toward resurrection and what comes after. For a show that has spent 6 seasons slowly building toward this exact turning point, that shift matters. It signals that as devastating as this next season is going to be, it's not where the story ends. There's more coming, and knowing that gives Season 6 a strange kind of context. It's not just the darkest chapter of the show. It's the chapter that makes everything after it mean something. What makes all of this land as hard as it does isn't really the historical weight of the story itself, even though that weight is real. It's the 5 seasons of build-up that came before it. This is a show that has spent years letting audiences fall in love with these characters as people first. Peter isn't just a disciple who denies Jesus. He's someone viewers have watched grow, stumble, and try again for years. Judas isn't just the betrayer. He's a man whose slow unraveling has been tracked in painful detail long before this moment. Mary, John, the other disciples standing at the foot of the cross, none of them are strangers by the time Season 6 arrives. They're people this audience knows intimately, which is exactly why watching them go through the worst day of their lives is going to hit as hard as it will. That's really what sets this season apart from anything else releasing this year. It's not just a retelling of a story most people already know the ending to. It's a culmination, the payoff for years of character work, emotional investment, and slow, deliberate storytelling finally arriving at the moment it was always building toward. Whether you've followed the show from Season 1 or you're coming into it fresh, Season 6 is shaping up to be the most emotionally demanding chapter The Chosen has ever put on screen, and based on everything confirmed so far, it earns every bit of that weight. So now it's your turn. Are you ready to sit through the hardest season this show has ever made? Are you dreading it, or counting down the days? Let me know down in the comments, because I want to hear what you're expecting from this season before it